I'm going to open the public forum. At this time, the public is permitted to address the city council on items not appearing on the agenda. Comments may not exceed 5 minutes. In accordance with state law, however, no action or discussion may take place on any item not appearing on the posted agenda. Does anyone have anything they'd like to address the council that is not on the agenda? Hearing nobody, we'll move on to the city manager's report.
Okay, can you hear us, Julia? Everything
Yes, thank you.
good? All right, just a short update tonight. So again, kind of going through our city priorities. Big news, old news maybe at this point, but the local tax measure passed, as you all know, but that's going to help improve the roadways. And then today, we actually had a kind of a debrief on Eureka Road with ACTC. Make sure that Dan LaFontaine and I understand kind of the process, since a lot of that happened before we got here. WGA was there, and then Councilmember Reardon was there as well. So we went over, because we did come under budget, and we had the impression from discussions that we could use that money elsewhere. And it sounds like we won't be able to do that. But so we kind of went through everything with John and Felicia up there. And then we talked about kind of going forward in the future. They're going to be opening up for new projects in January. So, you know, the ACTC, as you guys all probably know, really dramatically changed their criteria for roads. Basically, the money is available to pave roads. I didn't realize it, but we were actually the very first project to go through completion. So we've kind of been the guinea pig. And so the county has several projects that were granted, but they haven't built them yet. And so we're going to be kind of monitoring that. One of the discussion points was really the cost per mile. And, you know, some of the county estimates are a lot lower than ours. We came in under our budget, and we're curious to see where the county comes in. And because so far it's all been just estimated data.
So on that project, Tom, the extra money we had hoped to spend on the administrative costs of that project, right? Are we on the hook for that still?
Yeah, we are. And again, I'm not making excuses. A lot of that was before I got here. And I don't even know what PSR stands for, but there was a form that shows a $40,000 contribution from the city for the planning piece. And Sandy had signed off on that, but it wasn't in the budget or anything. So I was really pushing to get as much money as we could.
Right.
But it was clear that that was planning, and then the rest of it was construction. So it's kind of where we are.
And a lot of that was, I mean, I can look back and take some of that responsibility also, because I was kind of new to that thing, and it was a new process for them. So we were all kind of on this learning curve. But today was good in that we got really clear on, you know, the rules going forward.
Yeah.
Our obligation is not going to exceed that 40,000? Or that?
No, I mean, it's all done.
That's it.
That was basically the cost to put it out to bid and the cost to have WGA go out and locate the utilities. And I was confused because in the construction, they actually locate the utilities again, but there's a construction location and a planning location. So they reimburse all the construction cost. Well, actually, we haven't gotten the check yet, but they will reimburse us. Moving on to the budget stuff, again, same thing, but it's a big deal, I think, that this tax measure passed. Thanks to all of your hard work. And again, that's going to factor into next year's budget. It won't go into effect until April. And you guys will see the upcoming agenda. We actually have some resolutions we need to pass to get those to the state to get the tax going. And then we're continuing to work with Tyler. Again, we're having kind of regular meetings. Had 2 so far. And then these pictures here, we had kind of an emergency repair on ARSA. There was some seepage in the pipeline. The picture on the left is showing you, it's basically a clay pipe in there that's been surrounded in concrete. And that's what a lot of it is underground. And when there's a leak or seepage, it's really hard to tell where it's coming from. And we were pretty nervous that we'd have to dig up a lot to try to find the problem. We ended up replacing about 75 feet of pipe, which wasn't too bad. It got done in 3 days. Jeff Campbell was actually a huge help. He kind of knew where the pipe was underground. So the picture on the right is showing brand new pipe with some gravel that got spread kind of below the pipe to support it. And,
How did you become aware that there was a leak or seepage?
we basically saw it, and
Or replace on wet ground or something.
yeah, exactly. And there was an area near here that always been green, but it was never coming to the surface. So we kind of suspected there was something in the area, but started to accumulate a little bit. We've been talking a little bit about iBank. So the city completed that. We submitted our information, and so we hope to hear back before the end of the year what's a reasonable expectation for how much basically debt the city could take on. And then we're working to complete this water board response letter, which is due December 15th. And then
Tom, I'm
I'd-
sorry, just
yeah.
quickly, is iBank the only game in town, so to speak? Is that,
it's a California state agency,
Yeah.
so its rates are better than a commercial bank, and they're available for water and wastewater projects.
yeah. So it just seems like the smartest avenue to go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great, thank you.
And again, we're just using them to analyze the city in a way.
Right.
We are planning to look for grants and things.
Right.
So, but it kind of will give us an upper limit.
Yeah.
So their job is to tell us really how much we can go into, essentially into debt over an ARSA replacement plant. Is that the goal?
Yeah, essentially.
Okay.
They'll say what the city's purchasing power is.
Yeah.
For what a lender would be comfortable with. And then, as we went through some of this ARSA dissolution stuff, there was a JPA amendment that we approved, the county approved. I went to Amador City's council meeting when they were approving that. And they said, we've never really had an update on the wastewater plant or ARSA. They have council members on the ARSA board, but they didn't really feel like they were getting a good picture. So I'm going to go to their council meeting this week and give them an update. It's basically the update that we shared with you guys a month and a half ago or so. But there was some new information. So as we worked through this iBank thing, there was a tentative timeline, which I emailed to all of you guys. And really it just shows, even if we get our butts moving and really get going on this thing, a plant won't be in operation until I think it was 2029.
Yeah.
Right.
Tom, do we have any shared interests with Amador City on a new plant that they could join us in on? Or are
Yeah,
they
for
just?
sure. No, I mean, they're just very small, but they use
Yeah.
our plant for treatment today. They want to understand what the plans are because the rates we charge them are based on the cost of running our plant.
Okay.
They're a presumed future customer and partner in this whole thing, right?
In terms of economic development, there's an item on the agenda tonight, which we'll go into some detail. I'd also mentioned this company, Humangi, some time ago. They've come back. They seem very interested in opening a new factory, basically in between Sweet Pea and the concrete plant. And so we are working with them, trying to help them make sure they have power and water and everything they need. And what they do are these, if you can see these blocks in the picture, they're mortarless building blocks. So supposedly you can build 10 times faster. You just fit these blocks together with no mortar. And they're also looking to be as sustainable as they can. They're talking about carbon neutral concrete and potentially using recycled water as a source.
No, they'll be up on Ridge Road?
That's the idea.
Okay. And that's still within the city limits?
Right. Yes, it is.
Okay.
And then just some other updates. So we gave a response to the Sutter Creek Ranch developer. We said their application was incomplete. We asked for a bunch of answers to questions we had. So we'll continue to give you updates. The Planning Commission had a discussion on Broad Meadow last Monday. One of the things we talked about was a walking path. Basically ended up rejecting all the alternatives for the walking path. And the Planning Commission said, even with a walking path, they still weren't positive about the project. So seems like it's a bit of a standstill at this point.
They are positive with the project, or
They are not.
They are not.
Yeah.
You mentioned it, I think maybe it was at the last meeting or when we talked about a potential path, using the gravel road off of Sutter Crest West down by the water pump and then run it through to connect it to Eureka, but that goes through private property. Have those landowners been contacted, or have they been part of that discussion?
Yeah. And
Do you know?
I don't want to go into too much detail.
Okay.
Yeah, we wanted to go around the edge of their property. They said they weren't interested.
Oh, okay.
So it's one of the issues.
Okay.
Just wanted to note we're working on the retirement health savings account, which was part of the POA agreement. Should start December 1st. And then I went to an emergency council meeting at the counties for emergency operations, basically. I think we had a discussion last time about communications. So, you know, there's a 5-year plan for emergencies that's due. The county is working on that, and they're gonna pay for it for the 5 cities as well. I was pretty impressed. I think there's a lot of good organizations here working together for planning for emergencies, mostly fire, but flood and other things. And we got some updates on the communication app. So we can use that app for non-emergency events, and shared that with the police chief and with the fire chief. And the county would actually like us to. So things like a controlled burn, you know, they are getting 911 calls. If Dominic can let them know, they will put out a message, say this is a controlled burn. So again, it's this new system. It's not code red anymore. But as long as people go to the website and either put in their phone number or email address, they'll get an alert. And I think the county went ahead and bought a bunch of like landline numbers. They signed up like 20,000 phone numbers automatically.
Right. So Tom, that'll be, from the city of Sutter Creek's perspective, that'll be your job then to manage us getting involved in that system and utilizing it properly.
I mean, it's really the chief's.
Is it just a fire deal, or is there a
No, I
city
mean,
aspect?
again, either Chief O'Connell
I see.
or Dominic need to contact
Right.
the Emergency Services
Okay.
Center under the county
Okay.
police department.
And make sure we're up to speed and know what to do and how to utilize it properly.
Yeah, I think they both know,
Okay.
but they control the communications, so they have to tell dispatch to put an alert out.
Okay.
So do you have to have an app, or just register your phone number with OES?
You just have to register.
Okay.
So you can register through the app or on the website. I'll probably send out an update on my newsletter, just to get more people to sign up.
Great.
We could use that for road closures too, right?
Yeah. Same events, so we're getting into the holiday season. think everybody's ready. Staff has been getting event applications and talking about planning. And then just there'll be one meeting on December 4th. I'm still holding on to December 16th. I think we're going to cancel it. But we just got a bunch of things for the local sales tax that'll be on the next meeting, basically resolution saying the council approves all this stuff. I thought we could also swear in the council members that were reelected and elected. And then ACES has gone around to all the cities. I think we're the last one where instead of coming every year, they want to do a 3-year rate increase approval. So we want to start that process. And I'm still hoping to get the capital improvement plan completed. Just, we're going through the numbers. Right. I think that's it.
We did a multi-year rate adjustment with ACES last time we did it.
I thought we did, but
I think we just did one year.
I don't think so. It was multi-year, and then we approved when one of those steps came through. And then I did get a call from someone in another city that said that the new ACES proposal is like a 20 or 30% increase or something. So
In a nutshell, ACES every 4 years does a detailed rate analysis.
we did that fairly recently.
Actually, no, we did the inflationary increase. What we did when we changed the contract is we didn't calibrate the detailed rate analysis and reset the years. They do their detailed rate analysis for us when they do it for the county. And so they just did that this year, and they're looking to take advantage of that. We could talk about it more. The hearing will
Right.
probably be in February, Tom, or January? I believe it's the first meeting of February.
Yeah, right.
So
Okay.
we'll have a full report for you.
Any questions for Tom, guys? Public have any questions from the city manager's report? Right, that takes us to item 5, the approval of 2 sets of minutes, November 4th and October 21st.
I looked them over. I could move to approve if nobody has any
No, I don't have,
issues.
I don't have any changes. I would second a motion to, is that a motion to approve both sets?
Sure.
I'll second the motion.
There's a motion and a second.
Yep.
All in
I
favor?
think we need to do a roll call with Julia.
Oh, okay.
So Councilmember Reardon,
Aye.
Councilmember Gunselman,
Aye.
Councilmember Swift.
Yes.
Councilmember Feist,
Yes.
and Councilmember Sarek.
Yes.
Okay, for the administrative agenda, were we going to do the ACT tourism marketing plan first?
Yep.
Okay,
So I'll just give a quick staff report and then got several people here. I think probably can present it better than I can. But again, this is a special business district, very similar to the Vintners district. I think the county supervisors ultimately approve it. The last time they asked for all the city's approval, so we're approving it, I think, this time before they hear it. And it will show up on the bill as a separate fee. And then we'll go to marketing of the county. So why don't you guys go ahead?
Oh, and I need to turn it on. So excited. My name is Kathleen Mahan. I'm the current president of the Amateur Council of Tourism. And I think you all know Tracy Bergner. So as Tom mentioned, it's the same proposal we were presenting about 8 years ago. And so since then, these marketing districts have become much more prevalent. So any of our lodging members that were kind of on the fence or not quite sure now fully see the value. So Atul Patel is actually on our Lodging Alliance board, and he's in full support. We have already 11 petitions back. So as Tom mentioned, the process is we notify all of the short-term lodging. So that also includes Airbnb. And then they start sending back their petitions, and then we go around to each city. We are meeting with each city between now and December 12th. So, and every city needs to understand what we're doing and basically give its blessing for us to move forward to present that whole package to the Board of Supervisors. Then that goes through just the same as for those of you that were privy to the Wine Heritage District. So it's put on the agenda, and then it's noticed for public hearing. So anybody can come in, whether they're an industry partner or, Rachel that lives up the street, and talk about their concerns, or maybe they're excited about it. And then once that goes through, it usually goes to a second meeting. We do need to have 51% of the lodgings approval. And once Atul, he's been traveling, once he gets back his petition, we will be over that 51% with everyone we have now. And we expect to get a lot more coming in the next few weeks. And then from there, we would be pushed probably into February to make the final choice by the Board of Supervisors. This is something that sunsets, so it's not a forever thing. It has to be renewed in 5 years, so everyone needs to be on board with that. The lodging partners are the ones that are the majority of the board and making those decisions, since it's their assessment that's going into this. We would still be requesting funding, just like ACT has done in the past from the Board of Supervisors. I've already spoken with a few of them. And then also when we come to the different cities, that won't change. We're trying to get on a level playing field to really be able to leverage everything we can to market thoughtfully all the amazing things that Amador has to offer, and working with the Vintners Association, which is now going to become the Heritage Wine District, gives us funding where we're actually a little more in line, since we're about, I don't know, 300,000 under the bare minimum. And that's a county equivalent to our size. It's not picking someone else. Most have anywhere from 400,000 to over $1 million just going to their tourism budgets. I know that's a lot. I'm trying not to be too wordy, but all of it's in the packet that I sent over to Tom. So, but if you guys have any questions, or do you have anything you want to add?
Just want to, excuse me, just want to say that that this is only to improve our businesses. When people come in and stay the night, they have to eat somewhere. They like to go shopping. They like to visit our different activities. And the goal is that we are also building a midweek business so that we have a 7-day-a-week economy in our county. And all the businesses have so much business. They have to be open 7 days a week. They have to employ more people. And that in turn then lifts our economy up and excuse me, and strengthens our community as a whole. So this is all in spirit of the rising tide lifts all boats. So any questions that anybody has?
Actually, this might be just a real naive question, but there's a 2% tax, correct, on the Airbnb and hotel, any overnight stays in the city of Sutter Creek, for example. Is that correct? So 2% for every night stay?
Correct. So the total stay would be assessed an additional 2%. In addition to the, for example, Sutter Creek TOT.
Yes.
So it would be an add-on of total of 12%. It is a pass-through assessment. So the person staying would be assessed that fee. And
so the fees,
a short-term rental.
So the fees collected for all those businesses or operations that are eligible to apply it, will that go directly back to those businesses, like back to Sutter Hotel or back to Hanford House, for example? or will it go into a more general pot?
So what it will do, it's not going to go generally right straight back to an operation for repairs or inventory management. It will go towards marketing and generating more visitors to the area to generate more of that TOT tax.
Okay,
And that-
I understood that, but will the businesses then have any direct say on how their marketing money that they've accrued to go into that, how that's used?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Anybody who is paying into the tourism marketing district will
Mhm.
have a say in how that money is spent. They will have an opportunity to be on the board that decides how that money is spent. And just almost exactly like you've been, Julia, to the ACT meetings.
correct.
And we all say, hey, here's a great idea. We should act on it. And who wants to participate? And that's how we're doing it now. And that's how we will continue to do it. But we'll actually not have to ask for more money from the businesses per se, because they're already putting in that 2% assessment. And so it will basically offset some of the marketing budgets for all of the individual businesses.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
okay. Yeah, oh, absolutely. Thank you. That's the way I read I thought it was a pretty thorough set of documents and information packets. I just wanted to make sure that was correct, that there was still some say by those who were participating in how that marketing money was going to be used on their behalf.
Absolutely. It is a complete democracy of all of the Lodging Alliance and the partners too.
Yeah.
There's always going to be people on our board that will be partners within the community. So we make sure that we are again rising that tide for all the boats.
Okay, thank you.
Did the Wine Heritage District go all the way through?
Yep.
It's set and. cool.
Yes, it's, sorry. It has passed. They've already, they sent all the ballots out. They'll be announcing the board for the Wine Heritage District, I believe tomorrow morning at some point. And it'll be moving forward with that. So the Wine Heritage District is a little bit, the way they're executing their process is a little different than what ACT will do, meaning that they're actually dissolving the Vintners Association. And they're doing that for several reasons that aren't, that do not apply to Amador Council of Tourism. So Amador Council of Tourism will remain, but we're basically going to be the administrator of the TMD. So the Tourism Lodging District or the Lodging Alliance will have its own board. So the board as it is now for ACT would dissolve. The only acting board would be comprised of all lodging partners, plus, you know, as Tracy said, different partners like our city partners and a lot of like the Amador Arts and, you know, Historical District and the Wine Heritage District. But ACT would then have that funding that we get from the county would help to pay the administrative fees. Because if you look at our chart of, you know, we want to spend as much money possible on marketing to really be able to put back, just as what, you know, Julie was asking. So that's why it is so important that we still maintain that funding, because right now we're 100% volunteer board. We do not have an executive director. We've been doing all of this in our free time because we're really passionate about it and we want to do great things for everyone here in Amador. So,
Are the lodging facilities the only folks who are going to be paying the 2%? Is that the sole source of all the funding?
yes, so it's only like hoteliers
Yeah.
and short-term stays.
Right.
So
Fair enough. Yeah.
yes.
And then you'll develop some process to merge all those great ideas and decide what to do. And if someone, I mean, when Julia first asked the question, I thought she was asking, you know, if you get $1,000 and you got 10 people, do each of them get $100? The answer is is not yes, is it?
No.
Okay.
No.
I just want to make sure.
So,
So
yeah,
you're going
and
to work as a group.
Yeah, and all of the hoteliers, realize this. So it's basically whether you have, a 30-person hotel or a 5-room B&B, there's so much different marketing that you can do to leverage yourself, but it's extremely expensive. And so it would be impossible for Tracy or Sandy or myself to advertise our VRBOs or Airbnbs or boutique inns. But when we all work together, we can all be promoting on a platform that we cannot afford to do now, because basically with our fixed budget as it is, it's actually not fixed. It's at the mercy of the Board of Supervisors. And so, and there's lots of other entities that are also making asks. And so this makes everything clear. We know what we will have guaranteed, so we can actually do a full strategic marketing plan and the buy-in from the Heritage District. So I'm really excited about how much we're working together, and and then that all helps us work with Chamber to do education, because everything plays a role. So we're really excited about it.
So what I'm hearing is this 2% TOT. But I'm looking here and it talks about assessments.
So
Can
it's,
we talk about that?
yeah.
Thank you.
So the 2%, so I think it gets convoluted because the word tax gets put out there, or because it's a lodging. So it's an assessment. So it's not technically a tax, it's a pass through. So you pass it on to your guests, it's a line item. 90% of anywhere you go, if you look at your bill, San Francisco has a very high marketing district. We wanted to make something that was feasible and non-deterring, but still would give us something that we could guarantee. Even in, like, if you go to Southern California or Santa Cruz, sometimes not only does the city have a different assessment added on, but then there's a county assessment. So we're trying to keep it as clear cut as possible. It's not a tax. It is something that if you're paying, into, your TOT funds, that's how we're assessing that you're on the lodging, that you have a short-term rental. But this is a pass-through. So some of our hoteliers will decide, I don't want to put it on my guest bill. I'm just going to pay it directly myself. And then others are passing it through to the customer. Does that answer your question or no?
So each business that's participating, and is there, if you own say a B&B in Sutter Creek, and this passes, do that any one of them have an option to not participate? Okay, they're all, it's
No.
mandatory.
Yes.
And then there's the assessment is going to be made based on their revenue,
The
lodging
room
revenue.
rate. Yeah.
Okay.
So their room rate. So everyone is going to be different. So if you rent your room for, $80 a night, it would be 2% onto that. If I'm renting a room for $300 a night, obviously I would be paying more assessment, or the customer would, but it's scalable that way. And so, sometimes we get questions of, if I have a long-term rental, I rent a room out in my house, that's not something that's being assessed. This is something where you actually have a VRBO where you're not living at the property, or maybe you have a separate in-law quarters that someone stays at when other people are renting, but it's a short-term rental, meaning less than 30 days, are the properties that will be assessed.
Yeah, I think I'm confused, or was confused, because when I think of assessment, I think of a property assessment
Oh.
on the value of the
Mhm.
property. This
Yeah,
is strictly an assessment on the value or cost of lodging.
on the night stay, correct. That's the only thing. And we're trying to, the way that the TMD poses the word, because then people also get confused when they hear tax, which it's not a tax. It's not an assessment on your property or values. It's strictly based on your night stays.
Thank you.
And just one quick question. So in 5 years, does everybody revote? So if the businesses are unhappy,
Yes.
they could decide not to
Excellent question,
participate.
Tom.
Yeah.
So yes, if we're pushing through this and a majority of the businesses are not finding it something that they want to participate in, it has to be the same process where we put everything back into it and get the majority vote in order to move forward. So it definitely is something that is not placed on them forever. It sunsets. And you also have to be constantly maintaining it, because if you don't, then it sunsets and you have to do everything over again. And it does have strict, bylaws, because we're doing something that's, approved by the county. So, once this is put through, we have the document that you see here, which is a draft plan proposal, but that board is what's going to, decide, do they, right now, basically everyone's pretty much agreed on, doing as much as possible, the 77% to marketing, but that has to be to marketing. So we can't just be like, oh, I want to, I want to do a bunch of educational seminars. That's not marketing. And so that you have to show, you have a lot of documentation on our end to be accountable for what you're doing for your businesses. And so it has a lot of, I think gives people a peace of mind that it's not just a willy-nilly. You have to abide by what you're putting into place, what's agreed upon, and what's voted in by the members.
So in regards to a TOT, the city collects that. Tom, is the city going to be responsible for collecting and administering
No.
this assessment?
Yeah, so that was, the Board of Supervisors, that was one of their big things, because everybody's doing a lot of jobs and we don't want to add more jobs to everybody. So the same as what the Heritage District is doing, they have an outside collections agency, HGL, I believe it is. And HGL would be the one that would be handling all of that. And so when we've already worked that into the budget.
3%, they get 3%.
Yeah,
to administer that.
So they're already worked into that. And two, if for some reason, if cities or especially the county were to have to incur any extra costs, we want to make them whole. So we're not wanting anybody to have to add on another member of their, for the Board of Supervisors adding to any staff. The organization is going to be covering all of that and making sure that it's as painless as possible and seamlessly. And it makes sense because the wine district is doing the same thing. So they're already very familiar with all the different cities and working with the Board of Supervisors. So it'll be I think a really easy process. So
I think it's powerfully positive that the industry is investing in itself, and certainly getting people here will help us all.
thank you.
So we did ask for a kind of a motion of support, and then Claire can sign a letter that will go to the county supervisors.
Did anyone in the public have any comments or questions? Did we need a motion then?
I move that our city council, our city of Sutter Creek supports and encourages the movement forward of the ACTMD as presented.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Oh, wait, we have to roll call.
Thank you. We'll go backwards. Councilmember Sirik,
Yes.
Councilmember Feist,
Aye.
Councilmember Swift,
Aye.
Mayor Gunsman,
Aye.
and Councilmember Reardon.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank
Thanks,
you very
ladies.
much. Yes, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
So tonight is kind of a short-term stay night. Next item we have is a discussion about short-term rentals policies. Just do a quick summary, and then Aaron is on Zoom. But you guys asked, I guess a few years back, there had been quite a bit of work on a short-term rental ordinance. And before all those details were completed, I think you guys, the council said, well, come back to us when we hit 20 and we'll revisit this. So we're now at 20, so we're bringing it back. And, this is really to get some direction tonight in terms of, do you want us to start working on an ordinance right away? And so the staff report, hopefully you guys read it, basically laid out kind of some decision points and some thoughts. Aaron, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, Yeah, thanks, Tom. So, like it says in the staff report, and like Tom said, this discussion started about 5 years ago when the council was reviewing a updated short-term ordinance and asked that staff come back when we hit 20. So over the last 2 years since I started, we have processed 7 short-term rentals, and we are at 19 currently. We had a 20th application, but it was withdrawn because it was a proposed in a accessory dwelling unit, which is not allowed. We currently collect 20 TOT from 24 establishments. 6 of them are hotels and inns. 3 are actually inactive short-term rentals. And the TOT takes up is a big revenue source for the city. Staff has not been aware of any issues with short-term rentals. You know, party houses, disturbances to neighborhood. But at our last meeting, there was some discussion about just what it's like to be the neighbor of a short-term rental and how that impacts people. So like Tom said, we're looking for some direction tonight, and whether the council wants to change the ordinance or not. One thing I will encourage the council to consider is asking for additional information in the short-term rental application package. I have a draft, or I have the package we asked for in the city of Jackson. And what we do there is we also do an inspection to make sure that there are no life and safety issues. And we also want to review their house manuals to make sure that there is the appropriate information for someone to be there, and what what their rules are, what the city's rules are, contact information, and some safety information. So staff believes that kind of the big things to consider when moving forward with this, like I said, safety, our neighborhood character and cohesiveness, and whether short-term rentals should be allowed in certain zoning districts, or there should be limits of the number in certain zoning districts so that they don't saturate a certain area of town. And then also a big thing is the availability of long-term housing. I know previously when I was doing some research on short-term rentals and I drafted an ordinance for another city in Amador County, one of the cities I spoke to in our neighboring county, they had put a moratorium on them because there was no availability of long-term rental housing for people in the community. So again, this is a discussion of what we should do. One option would be that it seems to be working, come back when we hit 30 or another number. Or we could start to review what neighboring jurisdictions are doing or other similar jurisdictions. And I could come back with more information on a revised ordinance, for example, putting caps, like a percentage of units within the city could be short-term rentals, how we would handle owner occupied short-term rentals versus non-owner occupied rentals. So people that maybe bought the house purely for a vacation rental, and accessory structures versus renting of ADUs, things like that. So, yeah. Any other questions for me?
I could ask.
Aaron,
clarification.
yeah, I have,
Yes.
I'll limit to just a couple and see where kind of they lead. Do we have an audit process now with property that's defined or is advertised either through VRBO or other media sites? Are those all audited to make sure that they've completed the proper paperwork?
So one thing I skipped over in the staff report is that Tom worked with a company that does these types of audits, kind of runs an enforcement company, and the pings they came back with were all units that we had registered. And so besides that, I think the only other thing I think we do is I'll just jump on Airbnb myself and take a look and see what's on there and see if there's anything that stands out to me that we have not approved. but it appears that the majority of people in the Sutter Creek that have short-term rentals are complying with our regulations and paying their TOT tax.
Now you say the majority. So if there are those who are not complying, what's the process?
So, I mean, the finance department would go after them for their TOT tax, their TOT. And there hasn't, and I can't think of anyone off the top of my head, so that I don't think that there are any units in the city that are not registered as short-term rentals that are being rented as short-term rentals.
So
Okay.
Julia, and I think it'll become a function of the finance department, but like I said, we tested this software service. They scour the web and they create these reports. And I think they found the same number that we had. Occasionally somebody will say, hey, I think there's an Airbnb at this address, and we'll reach out. And so far people have registered. It doesn't seem like there's people trying to avoid the system.
Experience with those kind of companies in another jurisdiction, and I think it's a good checkpoint for us now. The issue is if someone blocks their calendar off of their availability calendar on Airbnb, that company, when they do the quick search, it comes back as that it was rented that week, when potentially it's, you're letting a friend stay there for free, or you blocked it off because you're doing some renovations or things like that. So, I
So you
don't
can't
see
use
that
it.
being necessary
Right.
for the city moving forward using a program like that, just with
You
the
would never
limited
use
numbers
that to
we have.
determine revenue or anything.
I mean, they do different
Yeah.
things. It's not all Airbnb either,
Exactly.
but yeah, I don't think it's worth it for us with 20 units.
So the point
then,
of clarification that I had was, so in this group here of 20 that we say we're at now, that includes the hotels or not?
No, it does not include hotels.
Okay.
So it's 24 with the hotels.
20, yeah,
Well,
26. Because the two that were just approved have not rented yet, and so have not submitted TOT, and were not on the spreadsheet I was reviewing to put the staff report together.
Well, it says of the 24 establishments, 6 are hotels and inns. 3 STRs are confirmed to be inactive. So is this information just not quite up to speed, or what's the deal?
Okay, 24, 18. Because we're at we're at 19 units.
Including the
So
hotels
20,
or not?
no, just short-term rentals, like houses and accessories.
Are you positive about that? Because in this first statement here under discussion,
I think she's saying there were 2 more that came in, but
Yeah, 24 minus 6, 18, 3 are inactive, 15 plus 2, that's 17.
right? Because of those 24, it says here 6 are hotels and inns. I mean, it's making that statement. That's why I'm asking the clarifying question. It's saying that the hotels and inns are in.
sure, we were saying 19 plus 6 equals 24. So we were saying 19 Airbnbs.
So,
Right.
and the reason I bring that up is because, and this could just be my naivety, but I thought when the council said come back when we hit 20, I thought it meant short-term rentals.
Correct.
And we haven't even hit that yet. So just a point of
We're
clarification.
super
that's
close.
all.
Like I said, we had 20, they withdrew.
Well, fair enough.
Some of these ones that are inactive may become active again.
Okay, fair enough. But we're just barely hitting that 20 at this
Yeah.
point. Okay.
We started this process of getting the information for the city council when we had a 20th application, and they withdrew their application.
Thank you.
Aaron, do you know how many houses are in Sutter Creek? Like what percentage of the housing is now in short-term rental?
I just looked that up.
For 1%.
Okay, thank you.
What did you think? You think it's 1%, Tom?
Yeah, I think there's, when I Google it, it's 1428 housing units. 1,400.
I think more appropriate though would be the percentage of the rental inventory.
Yeah, I
Do
was
we
gonna
know
ask
that, or-
too.
Oh,
But how would we know? Do we
In other
have-
words, because the staff report talks about limiting the percentage of short-term rentals in a ratio to the long-term rentals. So we don't know whether our short-term rentals represent 20% of the total rental inventory or 10% or 30%, correct?
No, we
Probably
don't.
hard-
Okay.
It's probably hard data to come by. But that would be my primary concern about not having long-term rentals.
Aaron, does the current ordinance, which outlines the application process, does it require inspection of the property?
Does not.
Does not, okay. And does our regular hotels, or Sandy, you might be able to answer this question, are the bed and breakfasts required, are subject to inspection? Like to get a permit for occupancy or? Okay.
I don't know that we know the number of rentals. I think usually about a third of the housing stock, if you took an average. So it's, we could estimate it that way.
I think it's on Jim Rooney's report that he comes and does every year. I don't know how accurate it is, but I feel like that's one of the numbers in there.
Mm.
On our application process now, I'm not sure. At some point, we'll have to define what we're talking about in terms of inspections. But when they apply to have a short-term rental, do they become a business and procure a business license? And one of the reasons I ask is just at our last meeting, Dominic was informing us that we can inspect and require smoke detectors and fire extinguishers and such at businesses where we have no say in residents.
Yeah, they all get a business license.
And I
I
wanted
didn't,
to go back to the renter occupied. I just pulled up our housing element. It looks like 52% of our housing stock is renter occupied.
52%.
52 of the 1,400 number we just,
Yes.
okay. Realized was that high?
A lot of apartments.
and so Aaron, I have a question, and I don't know if it's the same or if this could be adjusted from community to community. Is there a like borderline? Is there a set in stone number of the length of term for a short-term stay versus the length of term for a long-term rental or a long-term stay?
Yeah, anything under 30 days is considered a short-term rental.
Okay.
And that's where you collect the TOT.
After 30 days,
Under 30 days.
under 30 days. Okay, there we go.
So just my math is about 2.6%, the 20 units of the housing rental stock, I guess, is short term.
So just for the point of, getting some direction here, maybe the council could indicate, first of all, if this is something they want to pursue at this point, and then if it is, maybe some of the, information we want to come back or specific factors that should be considered. What do you guys think of that?
I'm in agreement. I think two general big questions I have is what kind of impact do larger percentages of short-term rentals, is there a potential impact one way or the other on a community's housing market? And I mean, by taking away long-term rentals and making them short-term, does that have an impact? And then now I have to think of it, having a little brain cramp. We don't have, a plethora of short-term, stays in terms of hotels. Yes, with the bed and breakfast, do we have a calling need for a growing number to expand what we have now into anything more?
So what do you guys think about just going up and down the table and kind of a straw poll of do we want to pursue a policy on this at this point? And start from there. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, Susan?
Given the percentage, I don't think that it's super necessary at this moment.
Jim?
I think if we're going to put a trigger on it, a percentage would be more appropriate than a number of units.
Agreed.
Because at 20, well, we're at 18 units. Did you use 18 as the number?
I use 20.
Use 20. Okay, use 20. So it's actually less than 2.6 if you go 18, a little bit. So I think more appropriate would be a percentage than just a raw number. Say 4% or 5%.
Dan?
It seems to me it's one of those things where there doesn't seem to be a problem now, so I would hate to create more work for a bunch of people. There is one outstanding thing in my mind that might need to be addressed now, and that is when we do the initial application, just adding the part about safety. If that's not that big a deal, Tom, if that could just happen. But in terms of reviewing all this other business and coming up with the magic number, I agree with Jim in terms of it. A percentage is better than a number. You know, a 4 or 5% of available rental stock sounds like a reasonable number to, when it gets to that, come back to us. But in the meantime, my vote would be go ahead and put in the safety requirement now in the application process.
I like that idea, especially with the smoke alarms.
Julia?
I agree. The percentage makes a whole lot more sense than the number. And I'm a strong advocate on having the either the safety requirement or inspections. Tom, they pay an annual business fee. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So
Don't they also have, isn't there, Aaron, don't we have a annual renewal fee for the permit? I thought we did.
I don't believe so, just their business license.
Just the business license. Okay. But
Yeah.
there's initial cost to process the, or not, to process the application.
Yes, there's an initial application fee.
Okay.
And then an
And-
annual business permit.
And then the annual.
Okay.
Okay. And then.
good. Thank you for clarifying that.
And the application, for instance, has requirements for parking. Are there any other, is there a requirement for contact information or
Yeah, all that stuff and response time and all that stuff, I think.
or not? I mean, those are things that really aren't related to limiting the number of how many units there are, but they seem like that might be something that should be in the application, that we did have to go out and determine that there are the required number of parking spaces and that there are smoke alarms and fire extinguishers.
Aaron,
And
do you know the
Yeah.
current requirements?
They are required a certain number of parking spaces depending on the number of bedrooms they have. They have occupancy limits. And then other than that, I don't,
Something like a
off the
1
top of my
hour-
head,
I thought there was a response time requirement.
1 hour.
there is, and it's not very clear in our application. I know in the city of Plymouth, because I did their ordinance a few years ago, it was they wanted someone to be able to be on site within 30 minutes. And just at our last planning commission meeting or in November when we had a question about it because the owner lived 2 hours away, it wasn't clear whether it's you had to be able to get in touch with someone within 60 minutes or that person had to be able to be on site within 60 minutes. You know, and if you're having an emergency where a bathroom is flooding or whatnot, you would hope someone could actually be on site to help with that and not just available by phone.
I didn't get to weigh in yet. I think it is.
So did you get
something-
my perspective, Claire, that I'm in agreement with the safety requirement and inspection, but not to get in the weeds on a whole lot of other stuff right now?
Yeah, I
Okay.
disagree. I think that we need to have some sort of policy because these go to the planning commission, and we've heard at planning commission meetings and from planning commissioners, they have no basis on what to approve or disapprove them. There's, I think, it's not a huge problem yet, but it's grown to 20 from, I think there was like a half a dozen when the council set that trigger. So it is growing quickly. It's certainly more than doubled. And I think there's a lot of pretty big differentiations. If people just start using ADUs as short-term rentals, I think there's a giant difference between owner occupied and not, as maybe you wouldn't limit the number of owner occupied versus the other. I think density is an issue. I think it's pretty clear that we need to make sure that people who visit them are, informed of emergency procedures and city ordinances and noise and, there's communications there. I think it should be looked at. And I think that they're a valuable thing. Julia said something about, do we need more housing? I think it's a totally different option. You look at a family like mine, we definitely want to rent a house where we don't have to go out to eat 3 times a day and, can bring your bikes and your everything else. So I think they're a valuable thing, but I think there are a lot of factors that could make them detrimental to a neighborhood. And at this point, the planning commission really just has to say yes, because there's no basis on which to deny them. Across the street, I know we've had, I don't know how many of them are active, but I feel like there were 3 or 4 in the last couple of years in that small neighborhood. Over in the Skunk Hollow area.
Yes.
So, that's maybe a density thing. So yes, I would think it would be a good time to start this.
Well, would a good compromise be, there's already cities with existing ordinances. How about just giving us some of those to look at and our ordinance, and then take it from there, whether we want to pursue it? No,
We do have an
okay,
ordinance.
we have an ordinance. We just didn't update the ordinance. We have a simple ordinance, correct? That
You
outlines
guys just talked, yeah, you have to apply, you have to have a license. I mean,
Right.
some cities didn't have any of this stuff.
right.
We could certainly, there's a lot of differences. I've looked at Airbnb ordinances around the state. I mean, beach communities can be very different than
Right.
other places.
Well,
but-
you mentioned Plymouth
Yeah.
Aaron, is their ordinance different,
She mentioned Jackson
or
too.
Jackson?
Yeah, so when Plymouth,
Substantially
it's a
different?
percentage of the units, so I think it was 5%. We had, we did required inspections. We also require inspections in Jackson, and it was the initial application and then a renewal, I believe 3 years later. So the permits were only good for 3 years, non-transferable. Yeah, I mean, I have a bunch of research I did 3 years ago
Is there any,
that I can update and add to and bring it back to show you what other similar jurisdictions. The research was for Plymouth, but Plymouth and Sutter Creek I would consider similar jurisdictions when coming to talking about this.
So
do either of those cities' ordinances address either density or zoning?
They have restrictions of where they can be in the city,
Based on zoning?
but like what zones they can be in. But I don't think there was anything, if your neighbor is an Airbnb or a short-term rental, you can't be a short-term rental. So I don't think there was anything like that.
So I would like to see the density issue addressed. I think those are the two, if we could, I think, summarize without putting words in anybody's mouth. I'm hearing that density, location, numbers, and the safety requirements to be able to come back and review those and include those in our in an updated ordinance.
So appreciated the straw poll. It was 4-1, but it sounds like you're convincing people. I guess the other thing would be how much time, so maybe one path forward would be to set a percentage and just tell us to come back, could be a year, could be 6 months. Doesn't have to be right away. But again, I don't think just looking at other cities is enough. I think what's good is where you were going, Claire, which is these are the issues I care about. I think that would be really helpful. And I think I've heard safety from everybody. That one's pretty clear.
I have one more thing. I didn't look into this prior to the meeting, but I just Googled it and I found something that I feel like is worth mention just with regard to few considerations for local governments. And one thing, because that's where I was going with the percentage and longer term rentals and affordable housing, I guess would be the next thing that I didn't voice. And they're encouraging cities to collect demographic data on homeowners and renters in their city and to assess the effects of short-term rentals on the local housing market. Because if we start to see a real trend in people buying, like third and fourth homes, and I talked to the mayor of Carmel at the League of Cities thing, and they were talking about how, and theirs aren't even rented. The homes in Carmel are just empty as third or fourth homes. So that would be something that I think we might keep an eye on.
That's another thing to be careful of. Just don't assume that somebody will rent long-term just because they have a short term, right? You could end up with an empty house or somebody doesn't buy a house or again, and then I don't know how many of our Airbnbs today are owner occupied or not, but those may never turn into long-term rentals, right?
Right.
But I guess that's the point in this though, is it's taking it out of the inventory for someone that might buy a home. And like if this started to be a real bastion of short-term rental properties, then
Right.
it makes it harder for people that want to live here to buy a house.
But I kind of agree. You said we're maybe creating a problem where there isn't one.
Well,
but-
yeah, I mean, with Claire's sentiments and stuff, those sentiments, I agree with a lot of those sentiments. And it's also true that up to this point, according to the chief of police and others, there really haven't been too many issues around various things. I've only been sitting here for about a year. I've only heard one person from the neighborhood complain that maybe there's too many. So I'm not saying these may not turn into issues, but we're only at just cresting the 20 right now. Perhaps there's a way where we don't have to get overburdened in this with everything else that's on the plate, but say we're cool for now, even if we pick a number at this point, not as the final goal, but when we hit, we're cool for now, but over the next couple of months, start sending us information, help get us educated so that by the time we get to a certain percentage, if that's it, or a number, we're ready to we've done some work.
Or if you feel comfortable, you could say something like, when you come back, when you hit 4 or 5% with an ordinance that addresses these things, and then rather than recreate this conversation,
Yeah.
we could have a proposal when we come back.
Right. And at this point, I'm not sure that we could agree on what those things would be. Safety, of course, density may be one of them. Claire, what were the other ones that were on your mind?
Zoning.
And zoning,
Um,
maybe it's as simple as a few of those things.
And
maybe-
if we would even lump in owner occupied rentals into this,
Sure.
maybe they don't count in the number because it doesn't really
Exactly. I mean,
change the
to have a look
neighborhood.
at
It's
that,
Not the, yeah.
to see what that impact might be.
I also don't, I think that's what I meant to say, Dan, is, this is something I think we should get the
Get the
ball rolling
Uh-huh.
on.
Yeah.
I think that I know that Robin and my dad had put a great deal of effort into a ordinance when you guys set this trigger, right? So there's something, we're not starting from scratch. And the other cities, but I do think it's not a disservice to the planning commission, but these keep coming.
If we can. provide
And
them.
there is
Yeah.
more and more contention from neighbors and people in the city who are concerned about their neighborhood and their property value and how, all the issues we're talking about, safety, I'm sure. And we've got no basis on
Yeah.
which for them to judge.
Well, and again, maybe.
And that,
Maybe it shouldn't go to the planning commission, right? I think a lot of cities would do this administratively. So I think maybe, I don't know, when
Once-
that ordinance was created, maybe they said take it to the planning commission, but there's really no role for them.
Right. If the ordinance is complete and robust and really reflecting what we have in mind, then it wouldn't require going to the planning commission.
Right, but what we have now, they do have to apply to the planning.
Fair enough.
commission, And the
Yeah.
planning commission
But I'm saying,
doesn't have any.
right,
thing
I-
to-
I'm saying that may be because the way the ordinance was, maybe it shouldn't have gone to the planning commission. And we
Right.
wouldn't have this issue, but
Right.
Aaron, in Plymouth and Jackson, did they go to the planning commission?
Yeah,
how's
well,
it-
the planning commission is who helped to draft the ordinances. At least in
Oh,
Plymouth.
okay.
Jackson was in place when I started there, but
Did they review every Airbnb application?
Or is it just?
no, it was an administrative.
Right.
The Airbnb or short-term renters were approved by staff, but the planning commission I worked with the planning commission to draft the ordinance.
That makes more sense, but we would need to create a ordinance in order to do that.
Yes.
I would like at least maybe just some cleanup on the specifics that we agreed on, safety and I think I heard that at least that we agree on keeping the number as it is and yet still opening up the door that we can clean up about density and safety and inspections. And I don't see that that's like a boatload, at least right now, of work, but at least a direction of where we want to go. We can stay status quo, but if we want to grow, then these other things have to be in place.
And I don't think anything needs to be done for me to just revise our application package. And I think by
Okay.
doing that, we'll be able to get some more information in regarding safety. For example, at the last planning commission meeting, the planning commission did ask for the applicants to submit just floor plans, and those can be hand-drawn floor plans. But I think that's an important thing for the city to have on file of the floor plans and where the fire extinguisher will be located, where the smoke detectors are, just so we know that the people owners are aware of those requirements and have put those things in place, because their permit says that they have to have that stuff in, but we never go to check to make sure it's in.
Right. So everything is just on the honor system, and that's where I think I have a
Yes.
little bit of contention. If somebody says they have 3 bedrooms, but maybe they only have 2, if we don't go actually check and see.
Yeah. So just a counterpoint to that point, I mean, inspections are going to cost money. It is a market, so if somebody
well,
advertised
I
3
bet you-
bedrooms and they rented it and it was 2, they wouldn't rent it very long, right? I mean, people wouldn't be happy. And there's reviews online. So
The market handles a
There's
lot of that.
there's
No, it's-
incentive then to,
yeah, I just want to throw that out there. I
No,
mean,
fair enough.
it
Would-
would just create more overhead over time.
well, when I talking about the smoke alarms and fire extinguishers, the fire district would do that at no charge to the city.
And
Yeah,
they may
good.
be able to do that now if they're a business and, they told us 2 weeks ago that they could check fire smoke alarms in businesses.
It's a good point.
And again, if you guys want to do it, I just want to throw it out, just the idea that we build inspections in every 3 years, as we get more and more of them, it just becomes more cost for the city. And so again, are we solving a real problem there? But if you guys want to do it, that's fine.
When was the last time we considered it, increasing the application fee to help cover those costs?
The application fee currently is $600 plus staff costs.
Okay.
Which I think is sufficient it shouldn't take that much time. I know when we did this in Plymouth, the application fee was, I want to say it was 2 or 3 hours worth of the hourly rate of staff. And then the renewal fee was like the cost of like 1 hour of staff time, but $600 plus, I mean, that should cover a quick inspection plus
Okay.
the review of the materials. And even if we weren't doing inspections at this point, just asking for those additional materials would be helpful.
Yes.
We have someone from the public to comment, Julia and Aaron. Sandy, go ahead.
That's a lot.
um, that's a lot of money. I don't think you could make it any more than that. But what I was going to say is, none of our hotels, B&Bs, we don't have inspections. We have inspections by the health department who comes and does that. But we've never had an inspection from the fire department or the city or anything like that. And there's a lot more involved in the hotels and the B&Bs than there are in these little tiny things. Second of all, these days, safety-wise, you should see what we have to go through with our insurance. If you make certain that they are insured properly, I think that's the biggest thing that you could
That's
have.
a very good point.
If you
Yeah.
have,
Proof of
if you
insurance.
have liability insurance and you have fire and everything, but they should have liability insurance, which I'll bet a whole bunch of them do not. But if you have that, you will have inspections. The insurance companies come and inspect us, let me tell you.
Thank
They
you.
do.
Thank you.
So that would take care of a lot of your safety things. Also, going and inspect to see whether they have 1 bedroom or 2 bedrooms. Do you really care? I mean, really?
Well, we require that the parking is calculated by the number
Yes,
of bedrooms.
yes.
So do we need, maybe we don't need to know, but
Well, okay, you could do it for parking, but what I'm saying is that creating a lot of staff time for
no, I'm
these
not trying to.
things
yeah, I don't wanna create
is
staff.
really, I don't think, cost effective for you at all. And my biggest recommendation is that you assure that they have insurance. You know, you don't have to check on it, but have people write down that they've got liability insurance and
Well,
it'll,
any insurance company will be glad to provide a proof of insurance
right, exactly.
to the city.
Exactly. So, you know, $600 is a lot of money for
Yeah.
a little tiny small, if it's small, it's
Right.
a lot of money. So I don't think you can raise that. But again, if you have insurance, all these things that you're talking about are going to be taken care of. And you don't need inspections unless you want to come and inspect me and everybody else too.
And we're not. That's
No.
why I asked you if we were currently,
Right.
and we're not inspecting long-term rentals other than, I mean, if I have 2 rentals on the street, long-term rentals. And I have smoke alarms, but I've never been inspected. So
Mhm.
I think
Well,
I think the point of insurance though, that really, if we're not currently requiring proof of insurance, I think we should do that. That's minimal. It wouldn't cost, add any cost at all to the process.
And then if you get up to 5%, then maybe take a look at it. But we do have some kind of a policy because I remember when I was on the council, your dad and Robin and I think Jim did it. We do have a policy and I don't think it
Well,
needs to go.
I don't
But we
think it was
didn't-
adopted.
We didn't update it
Oh, okay.
and that's when it was said, well, we'll look at it again when we get to 20 units.
Right. And you know, I don't think it
No.
has to be the planning commission either. I think it should be an administrative job. When we opened our bed and breakfast, the only thing the planning commission did was we had to get a sign permit. And it could only be, you know, this big. And we went to the planning commission and that's what they approved. And that's all. The planning commission does not come and inspect all your lodging places. So that's just my thought.
Thanks for the pro tip, Sandy, on insurance.
Thanks, Sandy.
Helpful. And I think it is, Sandy's right, a hotel and a bed and breakfast is much more involved. Although the difference, my concern, the difference would be that the VRBOs or whatever we're going to call them are vacant, you know, so without vacant, otherwise, you know, there's no one else there with you safety wise or after you leave if something's left on or smoking or.
Do not have people there and hotels. I'm not going to name them to you, but I can, who have no one there. I will name them. The Foxes doesn't have anybody there. And I don't know if the Hanford House does or not. They probably do, but everybody doesn't.
Good to know.
Are there any sort of parking regulations in our current application?
Yeah, one parking place off the street for every bedroom.
Okay, okay, thank you.
So could I propose that we use the 4% as the next trigger point, but look at the ordinance and make sure that it does require insurance? And can we, with the current ordinance, can we make this administrative approval or staff approval with the
I
current
was
ordinance?
Just skimming the online application, I don't see any requirement for insurance, but it was just a quick.
That'd be easy to.
Right, it's probably not there, but is that something, we could just add that, right?
Yeah, we could add it as a condition of approval.
Right.
Okay,
Would it be part of the application? You have to show proof of insurance.
Yeah.
I mean, if you guys are all on board for making it a staff decision instead of planning commission, and then adding some more stuff about the safety information in the handbook.
Right.
Right.
I do
I
think.
think we're good.
The difference between a hotel and Airbnb is it was built as a house, and now it's a hotel, right? And
Yeah.
so you don't go through those county inspections.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you go in.
So Tom, we'll need to review the ordinance to make sure that it doesn't need to be changed to change it to a administrative approval.
Yeah, we might have to, we might have to
Right.
change
we
the
can bring
ordinance,
that-
make a
we
new
can bring that
ordinance.
Back to you guys.
So if we're going to change the ordinance, then
But I mean, just minor tweaks.
Any, if you stay in a hotel, on the door, they're gonna have an exit plan or an exit schematic, and those are simple things that could be provided in
and
the
local
application.
fire and police number. And,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, posted. 911.
Not necessarily though, because like with the Imperial, I don't think we ever had that.
So just the way that these have been processed is as an Airbnb, or I'm sorry, as a bed and breakfast, which are permitted in any zone upon securing a conditional use permit. So we would have to change the zoning ordinance.
Why was that?
Did you say that again?
So the way we process short-term rentals is the same that as we do bed and breakfasts, and bed and breakfasts are permitted in any zone upon securing a conditional use permit. And the planning commission is the approving body for conditional use permits.
Oh, I see.
Is
We
that-
actually don't
that's-
have an administrative use permit in our code, which
So that's, is
something
that
to-
for exceptions, Aaron, or all applications require?
that's for all applications of bed and breakfasts,
And,
which is
and that's
how we are classifying short-term rentals.
as a bed and breakfast.
Well, I think the point is every short-term rental requires a CUP, which has to go to the planning commission, right?
Yeah, and by sending it to the planning commission, it probably does exceed that $600 application fee, because we have to do things like send it to the newspaper for public hearing notice, and that's a few $100s, notices out to all the neighbors within 300 feet. So it's just all additional staff time and costs that add up to. So if it did go to an administrative type permit, then that big chunk of public noticing wouldn't be there anymore.
Yeah, and that's
But
with
I
the
still
business
have
license
the-
either. There's another $174, so it's $775 or whatever to get.
And there's still the same issue. It goes to the planning commission and everybody's noticed and all the neighbors come and everybody says what their concerns are. And the planning commission has no grounds to not approve the conditional use permit because there's really no basis. 'Cause
I mean, they do ask if they meet, and a lot of times the owners show up. And again.
Right.
And
you know,
there's findings, they have to make findings.
Right. There's some, Claire, but not what you're describing. It's not, well, and it's not robust. It's not representing the concerns that we've been talking about tonight necessarily. So we want to beef it up at some point.
So it sounds like it's a pretty arduous process.
So Derek, what do you think if, I don't know if you've been following, if we wanted to make it administrative, what would be the easiest course?
Does that need to go then as a council motion to change the administrative process? Or to take the administrative
For the
process?
record, I have no interest in making an administrative
we're not-
without a beefed up
This is,
ordinance.
I just want to be clear.
Yeah.
This is a directional item only. We're not making any decisions tonight. If you want to go to some form of administrative process, I will have to write that up and create that. So it's a pretty, and I'm very happy to do that, but we are not making any decisions tonight in terms of what will happen going forward. This is a directional item. What do you want staff to bring to when and how? But if you want something that's more administrative and removes from decision-making bodies such as yourself, that's fine, but that would require drafting. And just keep in mind, there has to be some due process whenever we have permits of any type. And so, you know, that would be a little bit of a concern in not having your council serve as a final body. But I'm not saying we can't do that. That's something I'll have to look at because there has to be some process internally. If we, and if we, yeah, and if we withhold a denial, then
Exactly.
you know, there's always a potential that someone could go to court. So we have to, you know, not that that will ever happen, but those are things I'd have to think about.
But there are a lot of administrative things. They would be appealable to the council, I guess, like if.
Well, we have an ordinance already that basically says there's a whole chain. So we could work with that.
But I'm saying if the planning director could decide,
Yeah, you could start
then
at a
it could be
director level
appealed.
issuance, then it goes to the planning commission, then it comes to the council,
if appealed.
all on an appellate basis.
Yeah. But if everybody's happy, then it's just a staff.
If everybody's happy.
Now, since we've got your legal mind, I have a question. So in cities where they have capped it at a certain level, and my neighbor was granted a permit, now I want to get a permit, but because the level is capped, my permit is denied. Is there any recourse for that property owner to say, you can't deny me, you gave one to him?
No, in theory, someone can claim they're being treated unequally, and they would make a claim under the Equal Protection Clause of the federal and California constitutions. But if we carefully drafted an ordinance and outlined the reasons why we're limiting the number, and we buttress that with findings and other
That's how
things,
you
there
address
would be
that.
what's called a rational basis, which anyone can sue, you know.
Yeah, right.
Anyone can sue for any reason, but to actually win a lawsuit, I think that if we do it the right way, would be extremely unlikely.
Thank you.
So direction-wise, because based on, you know, when I heard Erin say what she said about the current process and why it goes to the planning commission and all that, it certainly changed my mind about, oh, why don't we just make it ministerial? You know, I'm not sure that's the right answer at this point. So what do we think? I mean, we tried this straw poll a while ago and it didn't get us too far down the road in terms of providing direction. What do we want to do, guys?
Well, I don't think it's unreasonable. We're having this conversation without looking at our ordinance,
Yeah.
our current ordinance, which, you know, probably a start. Is there any, can we task the planning commission with this?
But again, I think without direction, we'll be spinning. So I do see several zones where it's a permitted use. So I don't know, Aaron, are you saying it's conditional in residential zones or?
Yeah, that was is it,
Like
does
in commercial
every
zone?
application have to get a conditional use permit?
I don't know,
Yes,
rules
as I
don't
think,
apply, But I see several zones where it's a permitted use, like the C2 zone. But I don't know.
Well, and couldn't owner occupied, you know, if somebody's just renting out a room in their house, would that also have to require a conditional use permit, or is that considered differently? I would think it could be considered differently.
so
But I don't think
There-
it currently is.
There really is no ordinance in place for short-term rentals. We rely on the bed and breakfast.
Right. Right.
Um, and so uses permitted in any zone is a bed and breakfast with a conditional use permit.
So maybe we should take the direction, go away and talk, because yeah, I just want to make sure we got that part right. So again, I mean, I'm hearing different things from different council members. I think the more direction you can have, you could refer this to planning commission. I think if you just say something like density, it could get turned into a very complicated thing.
That-
So I have some
that-
concerns
That was the
about that.
case when we did this the last time. It got so complicated. You know, it's like you could have two houses on the north side of the street, but then if somebody on the south side came in, there
Yeah.
were too many. You know, it got really convoluted.
Yeah.
So-
I wrote 4 versions of this over several
beautiful.
years, and the last version was done in 2019.
Yeah,
So
so
I've spent hours drafting
Yeah.
this.
So I'd like to avoid that part if we can. I think there are other areas where you guys were clearly in agreement.
I think we're in agreement on the safety stuff. I think we're in agreement on insurance. And then I think we're in agreement that we'd like to review the work that you've done at some point as a starting place along
Yeah,
with these,
without redoing it all.
without redoing it, just
Correct.
send us copies. And then let's talk again.
And I think in the short term with, in the short term with the safety, just adding that condition of approval that they must have insurance and
Is the
asking for
concern.
a floor plan are easy, quick fixes that we can, do without any other discussion.
Agree.
Right, the floor plan, the fire extinguisher, the smoke alarm.
Yeah, fire extinguishers and smoke detectors too.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
A floor plan that shows where they're located.
Where those items are located.
Do you guys want to set a trigger for this coming back to you?
Oh, for coming back to us?
4%, I propose.
To wait that long, Jim?
No. Well, what?
So
When do we want to?
are you saying that the issues that we just outlined,
No, we'll do the.
do
same
those
thing,
immediately, right?
but
That would
the-
start now.
The bigger issues,
Right.
come back when we hit 4% of the.
How about ask Derek to send us all copies of the current as written. Let us read it and think about it. And then next time we have a meeting, ask us again. And depending on what we see and how far disparate it is from what we're talking about, we may say we need to talk about this sooner rather than later. Or we may say, you know what we have is good enough for a while. Because I don't think we're ready to say 4% and not talk about this again at this point without, well, seeing the changes that Aaron is about to make. Certainly, that's the short term.
Well, and 4% would be doubling it again, right? We have. They were
Yes.
at 2,
It'd be
yeah.
less.
And we already have,
We're at 2.6, so double will be 5.2, so 4 is sooner.
we have folks with legitimate concerns and,
Well, how many folks?
well, I don't,
Honestly,
I don't.
That's
know.
my
I
suggestion
think
was to
that-
keep the cap as it is before we make any changes. To jump up to 4% and yet not cover the concerns that we've kind of come to a consensus about, so doesn't seem to make much sense
No,
that we
that's-
agree on a
that's not what-
number,
That's
but
not what
not
was
what to do with
proposed.
them.
No, Julia, that's, the proposal was to address the insurance, and the floor plan was showing the location of fire extinguishers. That was to happen now.
Okay,
And
I
if-
get it. Okay.
And if you don't like 4%, we could say come back in 6 months with some proposals, examples of restrictions by zoning or.
Well, I think it might be 4% or 6 months before we have anything, foundational to talk about, but you
No,
know,
I mean, if
I
you
don't see any
guys-
reason to not get the ball rolling by sending us what we have.
Right. I mean,
And-
that's no problem, right? Yeah.
Well, we're just giving direction tonight, so we don't have to come up with a concrete percentage or number.
Correct.
So the direction is updated as we've talked, update the existing as we've talked about. And Derek, if you would, please send us all a copy of the most current one. That's the direction tonight.
The current draft.
Yeah, the current draft,
Draft.
Derek.
Yes.
Yeah, and we'll keep it in the
And
conversation.
And the current,
And the current ordinance and,
Once it's updated.
you know, maybe we could get Plymouth and Jackson's kicked in there too. Okay, are we good? California Jobs First Grant.
Where do you go?
Yeah.
He left. He got tired of waiting for that.
Yeah, unfortunately, Andrew had to leave. He was just here to say that he's enthusiastically supportive, and he's
Right,
been working with me, and he's been very positive and kind of great. to work
right.
with. So again, just because there's this grant deadline, I wanted to bring this to you guys, make sure it wasn't going off the reservation. But again, it's not really fully baked at this point.
Right.
It's the Sierra Jobs First. They've opened up $9 million in grants, and there's additional $5 million if you're working with a tribe in some aspect. So the idea is to look at some kind of small business / startup center. The first year, the grant would be used for planning and really kind of defining what it is we're trying to do
Yeah.
better.
Yeah.
We have talked to a couple other people who have done this kind of thing, gotten a lot of advice. And we've started networking, and there's a group of people seem pretty enthusiastic about working on this kind of thing. So, you know, right now it'd be mostly staff time. The city would act as the fiscal agent for this. So
Yeah.
kind of give it a center of gravity. But, you know, I'd love to hear you guys' ideas, and your thoughts on this. And
I thought this was a very good and thorough report. It really covered pretty well.
Yeah, I
I
agree.
only see upside if it.
Yeah, I think it's all good. From my perspective also, it's, I would say, move forward. And as we get, you know, to it, we have to participate if we're going to have a chance to get any of the big dollars down the road.
Yeah.
We're not committing to anything. You've got energy for it. It looks really good. I would say go for it.
I agree. I like it.
You mentioned in here about the grammar school. Would that be just for Sutter Creek or for a larger area?
I mean, I think it would be open, I think, to anybody. So
Right.
again, part of the thinking is all these things are rolling together in my head. We're paying these utility bills for buildings that are empty a large part of the day. So how
Right.
do we leverage our resources better?
Yeah.
So these other centers, a lot of them have membership models. So you pay a monthly subscription. So anybody in the county, you know, who wanted to be a customer outside the county even,
Yeah. Okay.
you know,
I think it's cool and you should roll with it and, you
Yep.
know, keep us informed, and hopefully other people join you guys along the way and take on some of the work.
So again, part of the application process is submitting letters of support. So I was asking for you guys to pass a motion so that Claire can sign a letter of support for the city.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, Tom, do a roll call, please.
Councilmember Reardon.
Aye.
Mayor Gunselman.
Aye.
Councilmember Swift.
Aye.
Councilmember Feist.
Aye.
And Councilmember Sirik.
Aye.
Passes 5-0.
Thanks, Tom, for bringing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
Mayor and council member reports. Dan,
Nothing tonight.
I'm going to mix it up. Susan,
No.
Julia,
I forwarded to Tom some of the ideas that the Bike Ped Committee had for designating the pathway for pedestrians, bicycles through the town. Our biggest focus was stay away from posts and signs and look into stenciling, which is more cost prohibitive and probably better visible. and more noticeable. So hopefully if we can get that on next month's agenda, Tom, for council review.
Jim,
No, fire district meeting tomorrow night.
me, I'll probably bring this back in a couple weeks with a little bit more detail, but the duck race, planning is going along. Brought in money from the Benefit Foundation, ducks, or money for ducks from Native Sons, money from the Rancheria, and have applied for 2 other grants for startup money. And we've sent out invitations to the first batch of invitations to Sutter Creek nonprofits to participate in the event at no cost, to have a booth there and get a share of the ticket proceeds. So it's a Sutter Creek duck race. We've invited Sutter Creek groups first.
Great.
Along that line, was it Giving Tuesday is the 3rd? So if you were going to do any donations to any local, that's a good day to do it, and it gets matched, or some portion gets matched.
Right.
City Attorney's report.
No report.
Future agenda items. Anyone?
Just the bike ped update.
There's information and correspondence in our packet. Did anyone have any questions or comments on any of that?
I gave everybody the night off, but if you have any questions.
Right. No,
Okay, we're adjourned.
thank you.
Cute.